It's 3:15 in the morning and you're awake. Again. Same time as last night. And the reason this keeps happening to you has nothing to do with stress or your phone or anything else from this century. Your eyes open, it's pitch dark, and before you even look at the clock, you already know what time it's going to be. And then you start doing the math. Okay, if I fall asleep right now, I can still get at least 4 more hours. And then you just lie there, listening to the silence. The house is silent, the street is silent, and you're confident enough that right now you are the only person on this side of the planet who's awake. Remember that thought of being the only one awake, because that's about to turn out to be completely wrong. Okay, so first thing, and almost everyone gets this wrong, you think the weird part is that you woke up. It's not. Sleep researchers will tell you wake up over and over every single night. Everyone does. Every time your sleep goes shallow, your brain drifts up, checks on things, and sinks back down. And you don't remember any of it. So the real question wasn't why did you wake up? The real question is why did you remember waking up this time? And why does the clock keep showing the same time every night? And honestly, the clock thing is almost embarrassing once you see the science behind it. You sleep in cycles, about 90 minutes each. Go to bed around the same time every night, and your brain will drift up near the surface at the same times every night. Simple. But then, you do that one thing that turns this pattern into a problem. You check the time. And the second you see 3:15 again, you get frustrated, and your brain automatically takes a note. Something important happens at this time. Do that a few nights in a row, and checking the time becomes a part of your sleep schedule. You subconsciously start waking up to check the clock. Okay, so that explains the timestamp, but it doesn't explain the strangest part of waking up. Some nights, you're not groggy at all. You're wide awake, calm, clear, kind of refreshed, with your head working at 3 in the morning like it does at 3 in the afternoon. If you wake up groggy, that would make sense. But calm, wide awake, where does that come from? In the early 1990s, a psychiatrist named Thomas Wehr ran an experiment that answered that question by accident. He wasn't studying people who woke up at night. He wanted to know how human sleep reacts when you take modern light away. So he put a group of volunteers on a brutal schedule, 14 hours of darkness, every night for a month. No lamps, no screens. 6 in the evening to 8 in the morning. Nothing. The same darkness every human lived through, every winter before electricity existed. For the first few weeks, nothing much happened, except that the volunteers slept for 11 to 12 hours a night. It was like years of bad sleep finally catching up with them. So Thomas just waited, and after a few weeks, they were all caught up with the leftover sleep. They now had 14 hours of darkness, whereas their bodies didn't need 14 hours of sleep. That's when their nights broke in half. They'd sleep about 4 hours, and then they'd wake up. They'd stay awake for an hour, sometimes 2, just lying there quietly in the dark, not tossing and turning, not anxious. And then they'd sleep another 4 hours and get up feeling fine. Night after night, the same shape. 4 hours, a gap, 4 hours. When Wehr's team looked at what was happening to their bodies during that gap, it wasn't the stress state. It was the opposite. The brainwaves in that gap looked less like insomnia and more like meditation. Their bodies weren't fighting it. Their bodies had scheduled it. So take away artificial light, and human sleep doesn't stretch into one long block. It splits in 2, with a quiet, peaceful patch in the middle where you're just awake, calm, and relaxed. But this was one study, one lab. It could have been a fluke. Except a historian had already found the exact same thing in a murder case from 1697. During the 1990s, Roger Ekirch spent years in the archive studying something historians had mostly ignored: night. What people actually did after dark before electricity. And in a London court record from 1697, a witness describes when a crime happened, and she says something that stopped him cold. 9-year-old Jean Rauch describes the night her mother died. She says her mother got up and went out after her first sleep. First sleep. No explanation, no definition. She said it the way you'd mention any normal part of any normal day. And nobody in the courtroom asked her to explain what that meant. Because to her, to the judge, and to everyone else in that room, first sleep was perfectly normal. So Ekirch went looking for the phrase, and he found it everywhere. Hundreds of references across centuries. Letters, diaries, medical books, novels, prayer books. in a dozen languages going back as far as ancient Greece. First sleep, second sleep, 2 blocks of rest, and in between, an hour or more where everyone was just awake. They even had a name for that, the watchik. And people used the watchik. This was the most weird detail of us finding. They weren't lying there doing nothing and waiting for the second sleep to come. They prayed. The church even printed prayers written specifically for the watchik. They smoked. They visited neighbors. Couples talked in the dark, in the one stretch of the day that belonged to nobody else. They had sex. A French doctor's manual from the 1500s mentions that the best time to conceive is after the first sleep. They tended the fire, checked on the animals, went over the dreams while they could still remember them. The same hour you spend staring at the ceiling, convinced something's wrong with you? For centuries, people just lived in it. Some of them looked forward to it. So where did it go? How does the entire species lose a piece of the night and forget it ever existed? You lost it to light, gas lamps, and Edison. Evening stopped being darkness and turned into usable time. Shops, streets, work, going out. Bedtime slid later and later, and the night got squeezed from both ends until 2 sleeps got crushed into one. References to first and second sleep start thinning out after the 1600s. By the end of the 1800s, the second sleep was basically gone, and the factory schedules had just made one sleeping block official. Ekirch tracked the phrase first sleep through the archives and watched it fade out. By the early 20th century, it was gone from print. And if you look carefully in the late 1800s, right as the last accounts of split sleep disappear, a new complaint started turning up in the medical literature. Sleep maintenance insomnia. People waking in the middle of the night, unable to get back to sleep. But the waking didn't arrive in the 1800s. The waking had always been there. What arrived was the idea that it's a problem. Sleep researchers are clear on this. If you wake up calm in the middle of the night, you'll usually just drift back off. What keeps you up until dawn isn't that you wake up. It's the panic about being up, checking the clock, doing the math, deciding you're broken. Waking up like this is ancient. Feeling terrible about it is barely 100 years old. So, remember that feeling from the start? Being the only person awake on this side of the world? Now you know what that hour actually was. For most of human history, it was the opposite oblongly. It was the 1 hour the whole species kept together. Millions of people awake in the dark at the same time, praying, talking, making love, and thinking about the dreams. All in the middle of the night. Of all the hours in the day, this was the one nobody spent alone. So the next time your eyes open at 3:15 or whatever time it is for you, that's not insomnia. That's the oldest appointment humans ever kept. And you are still showing up.